The new legal year has begun. Police are investigating the country's latest homicide, and the Pan American Health Organization saying that Omicron is probably in the Bahamas. Good evening, everyone. I'm Tyler Simonet with your JCN News for this Wednesday, January 12th. The usual pomp and pageantry of the opening of the legal year significantly downscaled due to a surge in COVID-19 cases here in the capital. The special sitting, which normally sees the legal fraternity gather for a ceremony to start the year, and the first sitting in Supreme Court, was done virtually with various speakers in different locations. Our Lizzie Bastian has the details of the opening of the legal year in this report.
In years past, the opening of the legal year saw members of the legal fraternity march from the Supreme Court building downtown to Christ Church Cathedral on George Street for an official church service and then a march back to the Supreme Court for the first sitting, receiving messages from the Supreme Court Justice, the Attorney General, and the President of the Bahamas Bar Association. This year saw Chief Justice Sir Brian Morey preside over the proceedings virtually, accompanied only by Senior Justices Bernard Turner and Indra Charles in the Supreme Court. This year's legal year opening was held under the theme, The Centrality of Justice to the Way of Life in the Bahamas. In his remarks, Sir Brian says 2021 was a year of innovation reform.
For the judiciary, it was a year of innovation, reform, and significant progress in modernizing important components of the court system at a time where there was minimal resistance from stakeholders, mindful of the imperative to change in order to conduct business during the pandemic. In this sense, it was the best of times. On the other hand, the devastation and intrusion of COVID-19 into almost all human behavior was, in a sense, the worst of times. Throughout it all, the takeaway message is that 2021 was a productive year for the courts.
However, Sir Brian says there's much more work to be done in 2022, and moving forward, the judiciary will be focused on the execution and implementation of the many projects and initiatives in the pipelines in the last 2 years.
The long-awaited case management system in the courts, known as JWorks, has now been installed, and the configuration and migration of the data will be completed before the end of this month. The go-live dates for the various divisions of the court will start in February. JWorks will be installed across the court system, including the magistrates' courts, the Supreme Court, and the Court of Appeal. The migration of the Court of Appeal data into JWorks will start later this month. The e-filing portal has been activated, and we are only waiting for the integration with the government payment system to be completed before launching this service. Lawyers and litigants should be e-filing documents by the end of this month.
Sir Brian noting that this will substantially change the function and role of the civil registry. The digital recording system is also ready to be implemented in the criminal division of the Supreme Court and the Magistrates Court, and has been activated in a pilot program. Sir Brian adds that fixing trial dates for criminal matters must be done more expeditiously, noting that fixing dates 18 to 24 months later is no longer sustainable.
In the Supreme Court Criminal Division, we continue to have difficulties with fixing trial dates within reasonable time periods. Lawyers who practice in this area are accustomed to obtaining trial dates which are far into the future, based on their calendar. Every case must be considered on its own facts and circumstances, but as a general point, the court will not surrender its calendar to the commitments of counsel. It is time that we address the problem of scheduling conflicts and adjournments. Lawyers who are booked for 18 to 24 months into the future should not assume that this will dictate the pace of the case or the fixing of the trial date. I am aware that constitutional issues are engaged in this discussion, but the court is not impotent in the face of counsel who claim to have no availability for 2 or 3 years.
With this being the last opening of the legal year for Sir Brian, as he is set to retire this year, the Chief Justice is calling for the government to pass the Court Services Bill into law, which was tabled in the House of Assembly last year, adding that he is in communication with the Attorney General on the subject and is encouraged by the assurance of the AG that the matter should receive the urgent attention of this new administration. For JCN News, I'm Lissy Bastian.
Police here on New Providence investigating a fatal shooting incident that leaves one male dead and 2 men at large. It was shortly after 9 last night that police were called to Knowles Drive off Tonique Williams-Darling Highway. Superintendent of Police Audley Peters gives more details.
Officers responded, and on their arrival they found an adult male lying on the ground outside his residence, unresponsive. A search of the body confirmed several wounds consistent with gunshots. Emergency medical services later pronounced the body lifeless. Our initial investigations revealed that the victim was outside his residence when a small vehicle pulled up. 2 males exited that vehicle armed with firearms. They then approached the victim and shot him several times about the body. The suspects then returned to their vehicle and fled the scene.
Police are appealing to members of the public with any information on this incident to contact their nearest police station or the Criminal Investigations Department at 502-9991 or 2. ASP Peters also had this to say to the public.
I won't fail to reiterate to members of the public who are aware of individuals that are in possession of illegal firearms to report them to the police. As in all matters, crime is everyone's business.
The government's considering reporting symptomatic positive rapid antigen tests. This much coming from Health and Wellness Minister Dr. Michael Darville yesterday ahead of the weekly cabinet meeting.
That is still being worked on. Digital platform is being constructed. And once we complete the pilot program here in Nassau, and by the way, we're soon to start another pilot program, hopefully this week in Grand Bahama, this will give the computer software technicians the tools necessary to incorporate some of our medical algorithms to ensure that our testing and contact tracing and real-time reporting is consistent with regulations, so that we do not have contaminations of false negatives.
The free testing pilot program was launched here in the capital this past Saturday, and Dr. Darville says he's finding that the response has gone beyond the 400 tests per day threshold. It has since been expanded to 1,000 tests per day as of Sunday, following the Prime Minister's national address. Individuals who present no symptoms of COVID-19 are able to test for free at the Kendall G.L. Isaacs Gymnasium and the Amelia Nassau Resort. There will be drive-through testing sites. Individuals with symptoms can get a free RT-PCR test at the South Beach Clinic, which will not require prior registration. Health officials at the Pan American Health Organization asserting that the probability of the Omicron variant being in the Bahamas is very high. Director of Health Emergencies at PAHO, Dr. Ciro Ugarte, spoke on the recent samples sent from the Bahamas over to the gene sequencing lab in Panama.
Regarding the Bahamas, the samples have been sent for genomic sequencing, and the official response is on its way to the country. But according with the epidemiologic situation, but also that has been highlighted also by the Minister of Health of the Bahamas and PAHO, it is highly probable that the samples will turn out positive to Omicron. So it is highly important also to recognize that the spike of new cases in many countries, including the countries in the Caribbean, and because of the situation of the health services that were already overwhelmed and the situation of the healthcare workers.
He also touched on how the cruise industry should be approached by countries like the Bahamas that are so heavily reliant on tourism.
PAHO has been always urged utmost caution and even considering resuming cruise ship traffic, because of the very specific and still poorly understood dynamic of the spread of the virus on board cruise ships, for example. So in regarding to national authorities, our recommendation has been to proceed in a progressive manner and on the basis of clear operational and administrative agreements that they have with the tourism industry, and therefore in the context of intense transmission due to the Omicron variant, as we have highlighted several times.
Dr. Ugarte says countries need to balance the economy and the well-being of the public while also prioritizing saving lives. Labor and Immigration Minister Keith Bell says that there could be some changes to the repatriation process. He made these comments today outside of Parliament. They come as since the start of the new year, immigration officials have apprehended a number of illegal immigrants throughout the country.
Most certainly, I don't necessarily want to preempt cabinet, but the one that I just met with my executive team this morning, and one of the things I asked them is that we have to collaborate more and determine, with the help of the Royal Bahamas Defence Force and the Ministry of National Security, whether we ought to begin repatriating at sea. Once they're intercepted, the United States does it, and I intend we spent $250 million on those vessels and upgrading our bases in our last administration, and I believe the time has come for us to now begin repatriating at sea.
Minister Bell could not give reporters an exact number as to how many illegal migrants are in custody. However, he did note that a number of immigrants that have come to the country in the recent weeks are Haitian and Cuban nationals.
As you know, we live in a democratic society. There's due process. They have been taken into custody. Some have been taken to Grand Bahama, others brought to New Providence. All of them would eventually be brought to New Providence. Some have already been before the courts, and the courts have ordered early deportation. We're in the process. We have already repatriated a number of them already. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I can get it to you. We have repatriated a number of them already to Haiti, and we're in the process of communicating with the government of Cuba to make sure that they are repatriated in a timely manner. We stand committed to ensure that we protect the Bahamas for the interests of Bahamians, and we intend to do that throughout this year. As they come, we intend to ensure that we send them back immediately.
Minister Bell also assures that no immigrant apprehended has died. You're watching JCN News. Stay with us.